Hi guys, we're going to be starting a new unit all about altered books. And the really awesome thing about altered books is you're going to build all the skills that you use this year, all of the media techniques that you've tried, and you're going to apply it into one finished piece. So it's really important to start this project that you choose the perfect book. When thinking about the first steps of an altered book, choosing the surface is really one of the most important things that you need to start off with. Because the book is going to actually be the canvas or the paper. The size is going to matter, the type of paper that's inside the book. So if the pages are glossy or if they're all printed in black and white. I prefer hardbound books, although softbound it's still great to work with, but the durabilities, it's a little bit more fragile, so I do appreciate these harder bound books. Also think about the weight of the book, so how many pages the book has and how easy it'll be for you to transport to and from school. And you also want to make sure that it's a book that would otherwise be thrown away or discarded from the library, discontinued. Like this encyclopedia book, it's the history of world art. But look at all of the great images in here. And this was taken off of the shelf and was going to get recycled. So great that we were able to snag it, because we can actually take some of these images out of this book and apply it to some of these other books. So we're definitely going to work on recycling and upcycling. So throughout this lesson, I'm going to show you some student samples, some examples of students working in class, as well as the criteria, instructions for the assignment, and a few demonstrations.
I mean, I've seen your sketchbooks. Some of your sketchbooks are sort of autobiographical in the way that you're journaling, writing, including like movie tickets and receipts and like the napkin that I went on this date with or whatever. You keep those sorts of things and kind of write this autobiography through artifacts. Altered books can really be something similar to that. They can be endless opportunities for you as well. The first kind of question that I want you to think about is, what can it be? What is an altered book? So a simple definition is that really an altered book can be anything, but it's involving using an old or a new book. I asked for you to try to find something that was decrepit, that we could recycle, that was otherwise going to be thrown away. But if you chose like your favorite book or a childhood book or something like that, that's perfectly fine too. But basically we're recycling, we're using the surface of the book as our work of art. We can cut into these books, we can tear out of these books, we can add to the books. We'll be painting and drawing within the books. Tom Phillips, as I was preparing this lesson for you, and I've taught this to classes in years past, Tom Phillips was an artist who I just learned about. And I wish that I had found him sooner. But he's a contemporary artist, but he's been altering books, in fact, the same book, for 50 years. The same book. So he's been working on one project for 50 years, and he finally finished it like recently. So I'll show you at the very end of this PowerPoint, I'll show you, I have some videos. One of them's of him talking just about his project, and you can see his studio space, which is really interesting. But these are some samples from his book. So he essentially took a Victorian novel and he altered every page, whether it was taking pages out and adding them to other pages, or like you see here, doing some type of a found poetry, or image transferring, or collage, or paint, but every single page is altered. So it's a completely new experience. Some of the pages are like a full spread, so as you open the book, left and right side work together. Some pages are just solitary. And what he's done is he's restructured the page. So what was once just, a linear left to right paragraph reading structure has become something that's horizontal. These words have been cut and spliced out, and it's been completely reframed. Okay, so kind of what's the big overarching idea? We want to create an original artwork within the pages of an otherwise old, discarded book. Okay? How you can use the text, what imagery, if you have imagery in the book that can support your drawing, you're welcome to use that as well. How can you use the physical structure of the book, the binding, the cover, the outside, the title page. Some of the books have a really pretty kind of like wallpapery inside that you might be able to include. How can you use those things within the book as if it were the blank canvas to kind of push the direction of your artwork? Okay class, so I'm going to show you a quick demonstration on image transferring an image from a magazine. So this is just ripped out of like a Sunset magazine. I want to take this image and image transfer it into the text. What's really awesome about this technique is that we'll still be able to see some of the text coming through or some of the image depending on where we place this, and it will image transfer kind of in a reverse. So it's important that you think about kind of your placement and exactly what you put the matte medium on will transfer. So get rid of anything else that you don't want to transfer. So I don't want this white border. I don't want this text. So I'm just going to tear that out. And also think about your edges. So if you like having a really crisp edge that maybe can butt up against the edge of the page, that's fine. Or maybe you want to keep kind of an organic tattered edge, which is kind of what I'm going for here. And I think I want my flower to be right here within this text. So I'm going right in with my, sorry, I was using the back of my handle to mix up the matte medium. I'm just using an acrylic medium. I'm going to paint some on the area of the book that I want to attach my image. And this will dry clear, so don't worry if you paint in a larger area than you actually need. And then go ahead and put that same medium right on top of the image. This is going to work as a binding agent. And then lay it right down on that area that you want it to transfer to. And I'm pressing firmly with the back of my fingernail just to encourage the ink to bind. And that acrylic medium is essentially going to take the ink from your magazine image and grab onto it and hold it onto the page. And then we'll use our wet sponge. After we let this dry for about 8 minutes, we'll use our wet sponge and we'll actually start to remove the paper itself, and the ink will have stayed on this paper. So we just need to pause and wait about 8 minutes and I will come right back. Okay, so we have waited patiently now for 8 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and take my damp sponge and I'm just going to saturate the back of this magazine image.
and quite a bit of water. So not so much that it's pooling up, but it should be plenty wet because you want to be dissolving the magazine paper. The matte medium, after 8 minutes or so, should have done its job. It should have grabbed the ink from your magazine and adhered it to the textbook through the page. And once you have your water, I just kind of pick a weak spot. So kind of feel around and you'll start to feel some part, there's a good spot. You'll start to feel some part of the magazine just starting to dissolve. Okay, in fact, I can kind of see that orange flower pushing through here. This is a really delicate process, so pressure really matters, and also how thick your magazine paper is. Like, oh no, I just kind of rubbed a little bit too hard there. How thin or thick your magazine is going to make a difference. So if your magazine paper is really thick, like a National Geographic, thick, kind of glossy, you can rub really hard, and it still may take quite a bit of time and labor to remove that gloss layer. This is a really thin kind of cheapo magazine, one of those, junk mail magazines that comes in your mailers. So it's actually super thin, which is making it easy for me to peel the backside off. But it can also be too easy, and it can come off more than you're asking for. But the nice thing about that, beauty and accidents, is that like this area that I rubbed a little bit too hard, I can see the words kind of poking through in that area, and that adds an interesting textural effect, and that could be something that you explore further. You may want, as you go, for these edges to not be as blunt as they are. So maybe you completely remove some areas and have the text come back through. This is transferring pretty well, actually. Also notice that I'm dipping my finger back in to the water, and I'm just using like the pad of my finger, and I'm kind of rolling back that top layer. Slow, slow, slow. If you're trying to image transfer a really big image, like something that would take up the whole page, I would recommend that you do it in stages rather than all at once, because the longer you leave the matte medium on and you leave it stuck onto the page, sometimes this process, the rolling back, the removal page of the page, it just doesn't work as well. I really feel like the magic number is 8 minutes for leaving your matte medium on. And then once you start rolling this paper back, you kind of have to get through it in a couple minutes. So through and through, maybe a 10 or 12 minute process. But if you're covering the whole page, it could take you 20 minutes to remove all of that. And by then you've had an area sitting for too long, and it'll just really, really be stuck on there, and you'll end up taking off more than you anticipated. So as this dries, you may lose some of the vibrancy just a little bit, and that's because you'll see that there's still paper on there that needs to be removed. So you might need to go through a second time and kind of pull a little bit more of those paper fibers off. But I think this is a pretty good transfer.